Welcome to another episode of Connecting Live. I am waiting for one Jordan Gill to join the chat and hopefully we'll get chatting. Hope everyone is well. Slight technical issue. Let's hope we can get this sorted. Jordan, I'm going to send you a request. So hopefully this will work.
We're working
Does
now.
that work?
We're working
Excellent.
now.
Okay. I think they changed it. They must have updated the live because it looks a little bit different.
Looks better to me. I can
It
see
looks
it now.
better. It looks better. Good stuff. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. Are you enjoying the spoils of a win, I suppose, would you say?
I am. Yeah, just been had a nice week off, relaxing, getting my feet up, plenty of sleep, and looking forward to getting back to the gym now.
How is it? Because you're one of those guys who are at arguably the top of your game. You know, you're well known. You're on a trajectory. There's a plan in place for you. And when we see, you know, the matchroom shows, they're so big and they're so well put together in terms of production and, you know, fan value and everything else. So you have this mad couple of weeks where you're in fight camp, you're training, and then you have the process of being in the bubble. There's all the media, and then obviously you get the win, and then you're back home and you've a week off. How is that transition?
It was all a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. And you say, "Oh, there's a plan for me" and things like that, but really, I only had 2 weeks' notice for this fight. So it's a good job. I was in camp. I was training. I was training as I was fighting. Dave was saying to me, "Yep, I'm gonna get you on. I'm gonna get you out. There's something's coming. Something's coming. So just stay on it." And I did. We got the fight in. It was a good fight. The matchroom bubble was interesting. It was entertaining. The whole production, everything, the whole team at Matchroom are quality. And yeah, we got the win. And then you come home, and usually, like after a fight, you have stuff planned in. You're gonna go here, you're gonna go there, you're gonna out for dinner, and you just can't because of lockdown and things like that. So it's actually been quite nice just to get my feet up and just not doing much at all.
In terms of the mental aspect of it, how is that transition? As in, you know, maybe normally you would be able to go out, you'd be able to see friends, family, go for dinner, have a few drinks, all that kind of thing. But now you just have to kind of sit very quietly at home and just process everything. So are you kind of doing a little bit more thinking?
I feel like I'm always doing a lot of thinking, but I'm doing lots of drinking, plenty of cups of tea. But yeah, I don't know. It is strange because usually, yeah, you feel like when you're, because I stay away when I train. I'm in training camp up in Sheffield, and I'm away from all my friends, all my family, and you know, I'm really miss my friends and my family. And it's nice after a fight usually to relax and chill and see them all in like a different, like if I have a week off for over 7 days, I have different like friends come over to my house the different days and things like that. We would go out normally, but it's not been able to happen this time. So I'm still missing that. Still, like, you feel like you get released when you see your mates and you have a laugh and stuff like that. So that's still missing. But you know, I've had some good quality time with family and just chilled out, which has been nice.
Do you find it better being away for fight camp? Do you feel like you get to focus a little bit more?
To be fair, I feel like I train well anywhere. I feel like I train well at home because you got your home comforts. You're not missing anything. You're relaxed, and you can sort of put a lot of energy into training because you know you don't need anything or not missing home and things like that. So for me, I feel better when I'm at home, but my trainer is away, and camp's there for me. So it's just one of the things that I've had to adapt to and learn to deal with.
So obviously, as I said, 2 weeks notice for this fight, but we're in a kind of weird time, obviously, with everything that went on last year and that is still going on. You know, Eddie in particular has been very vocal about fighters stay ready. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when a fight is going to land in your laps. So for you, obviously, with Dave, having that kind of, I don't know when it's going to be. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, could be eight. How does that work in terms of your preparation? Do you find it easier to know, okay, I have 10 weeks, I know the opponents, this is what we're working towards, or are you just, I'm in the gym all the time and I'm going to be ready?
It's hard because normally, you know, I like to have notice. Everybody likes to have notice. It's not so much in the opponent, but it's more a case of doing the certain things at certain times. So especially with your strength conditioning, you don't want to be doing, like, you don't want to be training as though you're fighting all the time, because it's just not productive. Because if you're killing yourself all the time, you know, your body's just going to be running to the ground. And you know, you have different training blocks at different times. So you might be doing max strength at the start of a camp, and then go into speed strength, and then you know, tapering towards the fight. But obviously, if the less notice you have, you can't really do that. So, you know, for me, I always like to have notice, but I was in a position where I was training so hard and I was so fit and been ready for a long time. Then I could take that fight on 2 weeks' notice and you know, perform as well as I did. So, you know, I was pleased to be in that position, and I think a lot of fighters wouldn't have been able to fight at championship weight and you know, championship distance against a top contender at short notice. So I was pleased to be able to do it, and you know, if you stay ready, you reap the rewards.
Absolutely. So that was your second, whereas was your second time fighting in kind of this new environment that we're in, this kind of
Yeah.
bubble, no audience. So how was that for the first time? It was Reece Bellotti, right? The first fight that you had in the bubble.
Yep, that's right. The first fight was Reece Bellotti. It was completely different. The indoors was completely different to fight camp. So at Wembley, it's like a little bit more eerie, because even though
Yeah.
when you're at fight camp, it's outdoors, but there's like different things going off. You can, I don't know, it's more of a, I don't know, it seemed like a major event, like an atmosphere and things like that. Whereas at Wembley, it was a little bit eerie because it was all like blacked out, and obviously
Yeah.
all the production and everything looked amazing. But when you're there, it was just sort of like deadly silence, and it was strange. But you know, I think I'm the sort of fighter that performed well with or without crowds. But you know, I definitely miss the crowds. It gives you that little boost and that little bit of edge. It adds a magic to it, and you don't really want to be fighting without crowds. But we're in a position where we don't really have a choice. So you know, needs must.
Absolutely. Was it strange being able to hear Dave in your corner and then being able to hear your opponent's corner as well? Is that a little bit unusual for the first like round or?
Not really. To be fair, they're the only people that you do hear. Even when there are crowds, you hear general noise, but you don't really pick voices out of the crowd when you find. I don't personally, but you know, I always hear Dave's when he's there with or without crowds. So it's good for me to be able to listen and zone in.
In terms of your performance, are you happy?
I'm more happy watching it back now than I was on the night. I was. I don't know. I wasn't 100% sure on the night, but I thought, you know, I thought all things considered, I thought I'd done a good job.
Absolutely, good stuff. So I just wanted to talk to you, if that's all right, about your thyroid issue that you had. Obviously, over the last, is it 2 years ago you were diagnosed?
It was about just over a year now.
Just over a year. So, I mean, obviously at that time, I imagine it must have been very, knowing whether you could go on and box or whether you would have to retire. I imagine there was loads of, you know, stuff that you had to think over at that time. In terms of actually, being able to get yourself back to full health and get back into this great trajectory, what were the safe steps that you had to take?
It was a little bit strange. It was all sort of unknown, because even when I went to the doctors, they didn't really know, because it was such a rare disease what I had. They didn't really know the ins and outs of it. So what I did, my nutritionist Scott Robinson put me in contact with like one of the top specialists, private specialists in the country. So I had to travel to Milton Keynes and go see a specialist. It cost an arm and a leg, but I got all the right tests done. I made sure that I didn't take the tablets that the doctors prescribed me, and luckily I didn't, because it would have really messed me up if I did, because they prescribed me the wrong medication. So
Wow.
when I went private, they basically said I've got a thing called subacute painless thyroiditis, and it means that I built up a lot of toxins in my thyroid gland, and it attacked itself basically, so it spiked up, and it caused my thyroid to go through the roof, which is why my heart rate was going through the roof in training. I was sweating all night. I was getting fat but losing weight. losing muscle. I was constantly starving, had no energy, things like that. So it was a strange time. I didn't really know what was going on with my body because, you know, as a fighter, you watch what you eat, you watch what you
Yeah.
do with your body all the time. So you're very in tune with your body. So if something's not right, you know you know it's not right. And usually, because we're so in tune with our bodies, then we know what's caused it because we've obviously trial and error. But
Yeah.
if I hadn't done anything to cause this problem, and it was just a strange time for me. So yeah, I had to basically had a load of tests done and went to see the specialist time and time again. And in the end, it's such a rare thing that actually cures itself. So once the thyroid gland attacked itself, you know, it went underactive,
Hmm.
and then it leveled off to a normal state. And in 90% of cases, it stays like that for the rest of your life. You never have a problem. So it's
Wow.
just it's a what do you call it? I don't know. It's just a weird thing. So in 10% of cases, when it drops underactive, it stays underactive. And in that case, I would have had to have thyroxine, which is like a thyroid booster. But you know, it's gone back to normal, and we're all good.
Amazing.
We're good to go.
That's so great to hear. I imagine that time was frustrating and also scary.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. It's the longest time I've had out of the gym in my whole
Mm.
life, and I honestly didn't know if I'd ever be boxing again, because my health was very bad. But you know, to go from such highs of headlining on Sky and winning, you know, belts and boxing on TV and things like that, to having boxing taken away from you, it renews that hunger. And I think since that problem, then I feel like I've come on leaps and bounds.
Absolutely, and it definitely like what you say there, that having something taken away from you, and it's I imagine that when you're in the cycle of fight camps and fighting and cutting weight and the process of being a professional fighter, you love it always, but I imagine that it can maybe get monotonous at times. And to have it taken away from you, was it that moment where you were like, okay, this might be it for me, and then you suddenly appreciate how much you do actually love being a professional fighter?
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes, obviously, when you're doing something all the time, you don't not lose the love for it, but maybe you lose the appreciation,
Hmm.
and you think how lucky are we to be able to do something that we love, or
Yeah.
we've grown up idolizing these fighters on TV, and I'm in a position, if not a better position than the ones that some guys that I even idolized growing up. So for me to be able to do this as a job, I'm very lucky, and when I had it taken away from me, it sort of renewed my passion and renewed my focus and my appreciation. And I think to be good at anything, you have to have the appreciation to know how lucky you are to be able to do it for a living.
Absolutely. In anything, right? But you talk about idols on TV. So who were the idols for Jordan Gill growing up?
I used to watch so much boxing. You know, in our house, we always had boxing on TV. I used to watch Prince Nassim Hamid. I used to watch Roy Jones Jr., Barrera, Morales. All these guys just growing up, just non-stop. I can't say, you know, who was always constantly on, but you know, all the old time fighters, even like tapes, and like I've got old video, what you got, a VHS of like Michael
Right.
Nunn and people like that. So
Are you still a boxing fan? Do you still watch boxing?
I watch boxing, yeah, but I'm probably not as much as I used, not as much as I
Mm.
was when I was a kid. But you know, like I don't really care. I don't really care about boxing or
Yeah.
who wins, who doesn't win. There's probably about five fighters that I know, like personally, that I care about whether they win or lose. Like
Yeah.
my friends, and that's in boxing or people that I train with. But apart from that, you know, if someone says, "Oh, did you watch the fight of the weekend? I can't believe this happened." I'm just like, I watched it, yeah. I don't really care. But I think you kind of get numb to it when you're involved with it. You get numb to the sport, and like I said, there's probably about 5 or 6 people that I actually care about in the sport, and really care whether they win or lose. But you know, I enjoy it. I like to watch the quality fights.
Who were the five people?
People that I've trained with and lived with, so like Lee Wood, who's one of my best friends in boxing, Leo DeLange. You know, been training and living with them since I was about 16, 17 years old. Hopey Price, who I trained with, Lorraine Richards. You know, I spent a lot of time with Anthony Fowler and the McDonald twins. So yeah, they're probably the only ones. I don't know, but I might get some abuse if I miss some people out. But
I've set you up there.
yeah, he set me up for failure.
You know, if you remember back to being a kid and watching boxing on the TV and now being a professional fighter, being in that position, is it as you expected? Like, does it feel like you thought it would feel when you were a kid?
I never really remembered how I thought it would feel. I think it's one of the things that you don't know until you've done it. And I feel like if I was a kid now, then I wouldn't expect it to be the way it is. So like, I feel like everybody looking at me or looking into boxing when I'm fighting or when anyone's fighting, I feel like their perception is different to the reality of it. I think it's
Yeah.
like it's a lot more brutal and it's a lot more, you know, savage than people think or it looks from the outside.
Has it been hard to adapt to, I suppose, the business of boxing? Because it's very much still a business and an entertainment sport.
Um, I think it's not so much how to adapt, but you know, it's taking. It didn't take me long to learn, but it's just it's one of the things, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
boxing, like I said, is a business, and you've got to put bums on seats. You've got to be able to. You've got to be sellable. You've got to be marketable. You've got to be able to talk. And at the end of the day, closed mouths don't get fed. So yeah, boxing is a business, and you know, it's something I learned early on in boxing.
But you're one of those guys that you've kind of been around high level boxers for a very long time. Even if you look back at your time in Ingle Gym, you know, people like Hit Galahad, you were both teenagers at that time, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've been around high level boxing for a long time. I remember I've got a picture of me and Kid Galahad sparring when I was 11 and he was 15.
No.
So that's how long I've known him. You know, growing up, I was in LA and Vegas when Kale won the world title. Went out there sparring. Been all over the world sparring in Japan, America, over Europe. Sparred numerous world champions: Lee Selby, Jorge Linares, Ryan Burnett, Zanat Zanayanov, all these sorts of guys. You know, I picked up a lot of experience. I remember sparring people like Junior Witter and John Thaxton when I was about 14 years old. And you know, all this experience is invaluable, really, and it's all sort of built up over the years. And you learn and you always take it in your stride. But you know, it's one of them things as well where you take it for granted because you're just doing it and it's just comes natural. But there's not many people that have had the opportunity to get the experience like that and spar all these top guys. So yeah, I've been around a long time, and I feel like I'm a late developer, and I feel like I'm just starting to get my strength now. I'm starting to come into my prime, so I think these next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see the best of me.
Absolutely. When you look at all those high level guys that you had the opportunities to be around and to spar and to get an insight into their way of being, I suppose, is there anything that you could put your finger on that you recognize that separates your average good boxer to those guys that are elite and at the top of their game? Is there any difference?
Um, yeah, I think IQ. It's a lot of mental IQ and patience as well. And I remember being 19 years old and sparring Linares in a top ranked gym in Las Vegas,
Wow.
and it was 46 degrees Celsius in direct sunlight that day, no aircon in the gym, and he was a week away from a fight, so I was sparring him, and I was moving around doing good and doing nice and like popping a jab out, and he was just like walking me down and just like coming forward, bobbing his head and like sort of slipping shots, and I was looking at him thinking, like when you should be out, you're world champion, you should be hitting me now. And like it was me thinking that he's not doing anything, but really he was sort of making me work, and he didn't throw much, but he was walking me down, putting me where he wanted me to be. And then when I was where he wanted me to be, he'd let him go. But it was just like the patience he had, and it like he made
Mm.
sure everything was so precise before he went to work. And I learned a lot from him, because I think that patience, that mental game it was very good. And all the top fighters, they're all very patient. They all sort of very, what's the word? Um, Very economical.
Very interesting. It sounds amazing to be a fly on the wall. But before I let you go, I'm gonna get a couple. There's a couple of questions that have come into the question box from people watching, so I'm gonna get around to ask a couple of them. But final question: if we're looking towards the future, fights coming up, the big one that everyone is talking about now that are getting excited about is yourself and Isaac Lowe.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, everybody seems to be messaging me for that fight. So
Yeah,
the demand seems to be there.
you sold it well.
I feel like we've created a bit of interest. So, it's a good fight. It's a very good fight. Isaac's a very good fighter, and he always, like I say, always seems to be fighting on the Tyson Fury undercard.
Absolutely.
He's got a world ranking. I've just been put into the WBA top 15 now. I'm at number 5. So, it's a great fight. It's an all British fight. It could be a show opener. Eddie wants it as a show opener for the biggest fight in British boxing history. So why not? What a platform, what a stage to fight on.
Do you think that will go down as a career highlight, getting to be on the undercard of a fight like that?
A career highlight so far, but I feel like it's
Yeah,
just going to be another step on the road.
absolutely. Right, let's have a look at the questions before I let you go, and we'll see what everyone wants to ask you. Okay, so there's a question in from it is Tara Smith, and she's asked, "How did the link up between you and Dave Coldwell come about?"
I turned up on the doorstep with my begging bowl and said, Dave, I've got no trainer. I've got no manager. I've not boxed for 18 months. All I want is an opportunity. Please, can you get me a fight? Within 2 weeks, he got me a fight. And then 2 weeks after that, he got me another fight. And I'd not boxed for 18 months. So that's how easy it was for him. That's how good he was. He got the connections. And then, boom, straight into TV fights and title fights. So can't thank him enough. If Dave didn't, if I turned up on that doorstep that day, and Dave said, what, I can't train you, I can't manage you, then that would have been me done. I would have been working in Tesco's.
Have you ever asked him what it was that he saw in you, or what did he have some kind of like blind faith that you'd be able to go on and do what you had?
I think we both know he just felt sorry for me.
That'll do.
Yeah.
That'll do. Okay, let's have a look. This is from AO Tech, and he's asked, or it could be she. Sorry, I can't see the little icon, but it is, what is your motivation?
I think my motivation is just to push myself as high as I can go, and see what I can achieve in boxing. I feel like I'm good enough to be world champion. I feel like we can go on and achieve big things in the sport. I feel like everybody I've sparred that's been a world champion, I don't feel like I'm out of my depth at all. And I feel like we can go on to achieve big things. Like I said, I feel like I can be world champion, and I'm here to prove it. I've been beat once, but I wasn't good enough at that time. On that night, I wasn't good enough, and I feel like I've made a lot of improvements now, and we can
Mhm.
push on it and get big fights.
Well, there's a question in here from Dean Earn, and he's asked, how far away do you think you are from another shot at a world title?
I think, considering I'm number 5 with the WBA, a shot could come at any time. I was thinking earlier, Kanzu was supposed to be fighting Josh Warrington in
Hmm.
April. Josh Warrington obviously got beat, and now he's going to be rematching Lara. So that means that Kanzu's stuck without a fight. So if he's looking through the rankings, no other boxer in them rankings has got a profile as good as mine, especially if he wants to build his name in Britain to set up a fight with Warrington. I'd be the perfect opponent. So, you know, a shot could come sooner than you think. But, you know, realistically, I think if I've got this ranking now, I could be away one, maybe 2 fights away, an eliminator. You know, I'd love to pick up the European title if there's not an eliminator available. But we'll see what happens. We just keep moving, keep beating who they put in front of me.
Absolutely. Right. Let's take one or two more and then I can let you go. Um, this is from Adam Darkin07, and he's asked, who wins the Fury, Joshua and Canelo Saunders fights in your opinion?
They're both good fights. I think on the Canelo Saunders, I feel like I'd have to side with Canelo. I think Saunders, for me, he's not looked as good as he has done previously. Like in the last two years, he's not looked as good as he has done in the past. Whether that's because he's put too much weight on in between fights, or you know he's not had the opponents to show off what he's really about. But you know, if there's anyone to show it off to is Canelo. So you know it's going to be an interesting fight. The last time we saw someone with footwork as good as Billy's was probably when Canelo boxed Lara, and you know he gave him a lot of problems that night. So it's an interesting fight. They're both at the top of their game. They're both you know top two middleweights. So it's an interesting fight. I'd have to say Canelo, but just because I think he's pound for pound number one. And but if anyone's going to do it, it'd be Billy Joe Saunders, and you know we got to back the Brit. So hopefully,
Yeah.
I think he's a good guy, Billy. So we'll see. But you know, realistically, I think Canelo is going to take some beating. I think he'd probably have to go up another weight for to get beat. So on the AJ Fury, I'd probably side with Fury. But it's one of them fights where, especially in heavyweight division, and it can go either way, can't it? So I wouldn't even be surprised if they had a 2-fight agreement. If after 2 fights, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 1-1. I think Joshua could knock him out and finish him because he's a great finisher. I think Fury could fiddle him about and frustrate him for 12 rounds. So it's one of them fights. It's a pick-on fight. I'd like to see Joshua win it. But we'll see whoever gets the tactics right on the night.
Do you think either should, not that they should retire, but do you think retirement is on the card for either if they lose?
I don't know. I feel like they'd have to have a rematch.
Yeah. There definitely has to be 3.
Yeah, there's got to be. There's got to be a rematch. But you know, retirement's always on the cards if you get beat. So it depends on what fashion you get beaten. So it's one of the things we have to wait and see what happens.
Absolutely. There's a message or a question in here from Kim Bergen, and she's asked, what advice would you give for amateur boxers?
Amateur boxers, the advice that I give, which is quite hard at the moment, is to get as many fights as possible. You know, in amateur boxing, especially if you're an amateur boxer and you've got a dream to turn pro, then it doesn't matter how many fights you lose as an amateur, because it's all experience, it's all learning. If the more times you get in that ring, the better you're going to be. The more experience you've got. So if you can get a fight every week, then fight every week. Whether you're giving a couple more kilos away than you should be, you know, whether you're giving a little bit more age away, or you know, a height, reach, whatever, just fight and learn, and you know, listen to your coach.
Absolutely. And one last final question from Sean Sims, and he's asked, what is the most valuable piece of information or advice you've ever been given, and who was it by? Who was it from?
There's so much. I think there's a few things that's always stood out to me. One, Brendan Ingle said to me once, it takes 20 years to become an overnight star. And I racked my brains on it for a good while. And I thought, what's he on about? It takes 20 years to become an overnight star. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what, you're right, because you work and work and work, and then boom, it takes one win, and everyone's, you know, your best mate and thinks you're a superstar. So he is right. And then another thing, remember when I was in the gym with Tony Bellew on the last few of his fights, he looked at me once and said, he who says he can and he who says he can't is usually right. And that stuck with me, because you think, you know, if you go into a fight thinking I'm going to win this fight, then you can win. But if you're going into this fight thinking, oh, I can't, how do I win this fight? I can't win this fight. Then, you're probably not going to win.
Absolutely. Well, they're two good ones. 100%. Right. I will let you go. Jordan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And look forward to hearing news of that fight between yourself and Isaac and
Fingers
whatever's
crossed.
next. Yes, absolutely. And
Sign the
tell Dave
contract.
and everyone I said hi and I hope they're well.
I will do.
See you soon. Take it easy.
Take care.
Thanks, Jordan. Bye.
Bye.